We're going live from the district with Congressman Tim Ryan, a Democrat from Ohio. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning. Great intro music there.
Thank you very much.
Glad you like it. All right, so Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's upset win over Joe Crowley, of course, was a shock to a lot of people and certainly Democratic leadership. But, Congressman, we wanted to ask you, is Nancy Pelosi right to say that Democrats should not be, overreacting to this result?
Well, it is one race, but I think it cuts both ways for those of us who are good friends and have worked with Joe for a long time. It's sad, but it's also exciting to have new, young, dynamic members of the Democratic caucus that could potentially come in. I associate with the sentiment, too. When I first ran, I ran as a 28, 29-year-old. I ran against two congressional and long-term incumbents and won. And I think there's a lot of value to what those candidates can bring to our caucus. I don't know if you can read into it, but certainly I think it shows there's a lot of energy in Democratic primaries and among the Democratic base, and I think that's going to serve us well as we move into the fall.
Okay, and to that point, are you confident that Democrats can take back the House with Pelosi as a leader?
Well, I think it's tougher, I'll be honest with you, because there are a lot of places where she's not very popular, and the Republicans continue to tie our Democratic candidates to House leadership, and I think that potentially is something that we need to overcome. And, so moving forward, we saw guys like Connor Lamb and candidates like Connor Lamb distance themselves from leadership, and I think there also is an opportunity there because it shows some independence. It shows that you're going to represent your district. It shows you're not going to just toe the line and necessarily be a part of the establishment, but that you're going to push for the kind of change that we need. So within that, there's also opportunity for candidates.
Opportunity. Congressman, would you challenge Nancy Pelosi again?
I'm not ruling anything out at this point, but, as I said a year and a half ago, I thought we needed some change, and, I think my opinion on that has not changed at all. But, we're limited in Congress as to what we can do midterm. But I'm not ruling anything out. But there's a lot of other candidates that are out there talking about it, too. I think there's a lot of conversations happening now post the Joe Crowley race as to what direction we really want to go in as a party. And I think it's important that we recognize that the Democratic base and I think the country as a whole is clamoring for some change. And I think we have a responsibility to give them that change.
All right. Well, Congressman, here's a tweet from you. Mitch McConnell should follow his own precedent and forego any vote on a replacement for Justice Kennedy until after the American people have had their voices heard in the midterms. Do you think, Congressman, that Mitch McConnell cares at all about being consistent with the precedent he set?
No, he doesn't, and he doesn't care what I think. I have to be honest with you. The Republicans are classic for applying one set of standards to the Democrats when they're in, and then having a completely different set of standards when they're in. They use power 1,000 times better than we do, and there's no question that they're going to get a nominee, and they're going to get a nominee who they're going to put up front and put on a pedestal and motivate their base with that same nominee. And I will just say, in contrast, another decision that came out of the court yesterday was the Janus decision, which is gutting public sector unions. When Democrats were in charge, we had an opportunity to support unions, to help grow the union movement, which in many ways is the backbone of the Democratic Party and the Democratic caucus, not just here in D.C., but in states all across the United States. We failed to pass card check. We failed to really buttress the unions in a way that would allow them to grow. And right now, unions are most popular among young people, 20-somethings, 30-somethings. So we have an opportunity here. But my point is that when Democrats get in charge, we've got to do the kind of things that are going to help us build our party so that we can represent working class people, we can give opportunity to people, we can take care of the issues on education, healthcare, all the things we believe in. But when you get in power, you got to support those people who helped you get there. Republicans do that way better than we do, and we better get on the stick, because I don't know how you all feel, but I'm getting pretty tired of playing defense all the time, and it seems like all we do is play defense down here. The the Supreme Court decisions that came down the other day. We've got to start playing offense as a party, and that means taking care and supporting all of the different groups that do so much to support us.
Wow, yeah, I was just really struck by that, and someone's already tweeted about it. You saying the Republicans use power 1,000 times better than the Democrats do. To that point, what can the House do at this point to protect reproductive rights in anticipation of a potential reversal of Roe v. Wade?
Well, I think that's another reason why they want to jam this Supreme Court nominee before the election if they possibly can. You know, look, I mean, Kennedy was a conservative, economic conservative, but he, on a couple of the social issues, he voted where I think the vast majority of the country is. Something tells me that President Trump is not going to put a nominee up there that is as moderate on issues like Roe v. Wade. He's going to put an extreme conservative. So again, you know, we're limited because we don't have the power. And so, you know, we've got to try to win some of these Senate elections in the fall. But if they do something before that, we're really going to be hamstrung. But what we can do is continue to get our voice out there. There are a lot of moderate Republican women and men, quite frankly, who are pro-choice. And so I think we need to continue to make the argument to them that overturning Roe v. Wade is a big, big, big mistake. And do they really want to be a part of a political party who continues to get the government interfering in women's health? A political party that has become blatantly racist, a president who consistently lies and misleads, a president who is compromised in so many different ways. You know, we've got to start making the argument not just to our base or not to the liberal base, but we've got to start making the argument to, you know, conscientious, moderate Republicans who love their country and don't want to see the basic institutions and ideas and values that we have as a country that we all share unwound because of this president.
Right. And again, to that point, you know, as someone who represents the great state of Ohio, I am curious, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, if that reality, you know, does come to pass, what kinds of restrictions on abortion are you most concerned about seeing in Ohio?
Well, Ohio has some of the worst abortion laws in the entire country right now, so it's hard to imagine it could get any worse. So, you know, from our vantage point, it may be almost as bad as it can possibly get. But undoing Roe v. Wade puts us in a terrible position for women to be able to control their own bodies and to have a bunch of white men, Republican, in Washington, D.C., telling women what they can and can't do with their body is outrageous. And that's where we are because we continually lost elections. And this is, you don't run and you don't play politics just to get elected. It's not a game. It's a process to get into political power, to have political power. And we've been losing that game. We've been losing that process. And so a lot of these chickens now are coming home to roost. They've been coming in states, quite frankly, for a long time. You know, in Ohio, as I said, with the abortion laws, with the right to work laws across the country, and now because of the long-term strategy that the Koch brothers and all of these conservative / libertarian think tanks and all the conservative money has been putting behind these initiatives and the systems that they put in place for the last, you know, 20 or 30 years, now it's all coming to Washington, D.C. Now the court is ruling in their favor because they've been able to get power. And so we've got to be very, very smart politically on how we get back into power, not for power's sake, but because we want to start taking care of all the people that have been ignored, left behind, whether it's criminal justice, immigration, working class people. We got to get back into power.
Congressman, strong words, but let's talk about immigration. The Republicans' latest bill failed spectacularly yesterday. You visited a detention center in Texas and saw the impact of family separations firsthand. Is there any chance, you know, you're talking about fighting, but let's talk about getting things done. Is there any chance Congress can pass something before the midterms?
I'm not optimistic. I just think that the president, and he said this, he wants immigration to be an issue. He wants to use it as a wedge to intentionally divide, to use race and color as a political weapon. And he does not want to solve this problem. So I am not optimistic, because the Republicans in the House and the Senate do just about everything that Donald Trump says, you know, and so he wants to use this as a weapon in the fall. Check his tweets, check what he said. He said we shouldn't deal with this until after the election. And then I guarantee even after the election, he'll kick the can down the road, because he's going to want to use it for his reelection.
All right, Congressman, you had your coffee this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.